In 1988, Bob Gibson, Forest Supervisor of the Gallatin National Forest, and Bob Barbee, Yellowstone National Park Superintendent, effectively used humor to diffuse stress and increase resiliency. Gibson begins this interview with a description of what the two men needed from each other as they worked through the myriad of technical, social, and political issues that arose during the 1988 fires.
I think straight talk, and I think maybe at least as important as that is a good sense of humor. You better figure out that who you are and don't take yourself too seriously. And even in the worst possible things, you still have to, I can find humor in almost anything. I always remember reading Reader's Digest when I was a little kid. There was a section in there that said, "Laughter's your best medicine," or something like that. And I think either my father or my mother both said, "You ought to read that." And I remembered that all these years. And I know that if Bob and I, and we did lots of times, could get a funny about something, it just takes the strain away from you. And I think you can think better with this when you need to. And Bob, of course, he could have been Jay Leno if he had an offer. And he didn't want to leave the Yellowstone because of me.
You know, Bob hit it a while ago, and when he said that we frequently met. We all knew each other. So the mating dances were over, as he characterized it. So, you didn't have to go through a lot of hocus pocus to try to figure out where so-and-so is coming from and whether they got a hidden agenda or, that type of thing. And, we had good people. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't get our tail kicked. That doesn't mean we won. And, that was a horrendous situation. I mean, it was the perfect storm, so to speak.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Bob Barbee kept he made my life worth living, and on more than one occasion. I say that with all the sincerity I can muster. He did. He has a way about him, see? And of course I did the same for him.
Yeah, of course you did.
He'd want to mention that, but...
So, now on the back of this picture...
That's what I'm getting to.
Oh, you're getting to that?
I'm getting. It took me a minute to get there. When one of these fire meetings, we had one every week, every single week usually in West Yellowstone. And all the generals and fire behavior people, all the big shots were there, and then they'd brief the line officers and whoever needed to be briefed around that park. And this particular day, this particular day was one of the worst. I mean, everything was going to hell in a handbasket. It was really Black Friday. So I was a very serious person. I was listening and taking in every detail I could take in. And Bob and I, we often sat next to each other. And he bumped me on the shoulder and pushed this paper over to me. And I looked at the paper, and the paper said, "Screw it, let's save ourselves." That was the greatest. That was that's why I kept it. It was the greatest quote I ever had. I just thought it was fascinating because that broke the strain, the pain. At least it did for me and Bob and I. And you could still live through that crap, see? And it was tough. We didn't have near as tough as some firefighters, but from a different kind of a perspective.
Well, and that's a good point that comes out of this. I mean, it sounds pretty irreverent and glib, and it was. You can take things seriously without being overly serious. And that's one thing I think everybody tried to maintain, was some sort of a sense of humor through all this. And that doesn't mean to say that you're taking things lightly or that you're cavalier or things like that. But otherwise, you can get yourself into a terrible fix emotionally and psychologically and so on. So, you gotta keep some balance in it.
Resiliency, the ability to bounce back after being stretched and to stick with it when things are falling apart, was an essential management skill used by Gibson and Barbee. And there is little doubt that their resilience was enhanced by humor. One of the most successful companies in America, Southwest Airlines, hires employees based on their humor. Herb Kelleher, former CEO of Southwest, says that what we are looking for first and foremost is a sense of humor. We don't care much about education and expertise because we can train people. We hire attitudes. Bob Barbee spoke of keeping humor and the seriousness of work properly balanced. Discuss with your crew when humor and work are most effective. Are there times when humor isn't appropriate?
Ah.